We have the leader of my majority party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, August the 5th, 2020, at the morning sitting. Number one, legal notice number 128 of 2020, relating to the civil aviation security regulations and the explanatory memorandum from the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. And two, the first quarterly report covering the period from 1st of January 2020 to 31st of March 2020 from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Number three, lists of nominees to 8 constituencies committees from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board as follows. A, Ainabkoi. B, Bomet East. C, Buri. D, Dagoretti South. E, Eldama Ravine. F, Kitutu Chache South. G, Nyeri Town. And lastly, Dagoretti North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. So we go to the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motions. Order number 7, questions and statements.
On this particular one, we will start with the questions, and then we will come to statements. So we will start with the member for Sigawet-Soin constituency, Honorable Koros. As he prepares himself, I'm not so sure if he's in here, so we'll proceed to, in order to save time, we proceed to Honorable Member for Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 120 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Health. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the total amount of money and other forms of donations that have been made so far to the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund Committee that was constituted by His Excellency the President to respond to COVID-19 pandemic as at July 1st, 2020? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary further provide an itemized listing of all the expenditures made from the said fund as at July 1st, 2020? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Health. So we go to the member for Baringo Central, Honorable Joshua Kandie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand here to ask question number 139 of 2020, and the question goes to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport and Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the Kapkelelwa Bridge, which connects Baringo Central and Keyo South constituencies, becomes impassable during rainy season, thereby affecting communications, transport, and school-going children and business people? Second, could the Cabinet Secretary state the measures in place to address the above problems? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Now, is Honorable member for Sigawet-Soin, is he in now? Let's proceed to the member for Meru, that is Honorable Bishop Kawera Mwangaza. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question 146 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the cause of power outages being experienced in Ubore area of Meru County for the last few months? Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the steps being taken to resolve the power outages? When is the ministry expected to complete the electricity connectivity project in the area? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. So we go to the member for Narok South. By the way, if the members like Honorable Kawira could be given an opportunity to take a seat, she doesn't have to go out because I can see a few chairs are vacant. So the bishop, if she wants to occupy one of the seats, can proceed and do. Okay, Honorable Dr. Corey Lemay. You don't seem to have the mic. What number is that seat? 21? I'm not able to see it from here. So just be patient, you will get your opportunity. I think they've given it, yeah, you have it now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 147 of 2020, which is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for East African Coordination. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on the of the Lower Ewoso-Nyiro South River Multipurpose Dam Development Project, being one of the flag by the Cabinet towards the realization of the Vision 2030 goals? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state whether there is any pending bills and what extent in respect to consultancy service for feasibility study and design on the said project, and if so, what measures is the ministry putting in place to settle the said bills, to unlock and ensure progress of the said project, and by when? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Replied to before the Departmental Committee on Defense. I am surprised. Is that supposed to be Defense and Foreign Relations? Yes, that is. It's going to be replied to before that particular committee. Now, I am informed that I can't see the member for Soin Sigawit, so that one will be deferred to another day. So we go to statements. And on this particular one, there is a request for statement by the member for Mwingi North, Honorable Mushimi Nzengu. This is a relatively difficult name.
Nzengu.
That makes it even worse, but proceed.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 42 2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health regarding the outbreak of Visceral leishmaniasis, commonly known as Kala-Azar disease in Mwingi North constituency. Honorable Speaker, in the last 4 months, there has been over 29 cases affecting ages from 4 to 28 years of Kala-Azar disease reported in Mwingi North in areas of Ngomeni Ward and Sekuru Ward. These cases have been on the rise and pose a serious health challenge to the residents. This disease is fatal if left untreated. It is characterized by irregular bouts of fever, weight loss, enlargement of the spleen and the liver, and anemia. And and it is one of the top parasitic diseases with outbreak and mortality rates. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Health on the following. What measures have been put in place to urgently contain the outbreak of Kala-Azar disease to forestall it from becoming an epidemic in Mwingi North? 2, what steps is the Ministry of Health putting in place to ensure that testing for Kala-Azar disease is enhanced as per the World Health Organization standards? And 3, what steps is the ministry putting in place to ensure complete eradication of Kala-Azar disease outbreaks in this country as a permanent solution? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, that one is referred to the relevant committee, which is the... I cannot see the chair because I would want to know the kind of time she requires to have this statement responded to. So I leave it and hope we can be able to the statement request by the member for Suna West. Honorable Masara, you could press your, yeah, you have it now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding the police reforms in the country. Honorable Speaker, efforts at transforming the Kenya Police have been ongoing since the early 2000s, with a range of measures and interventions, new organizational and command structures, and laws being introduced over the periods. The initiatives, which were ambitious and encompassing, and which were designed to transform the security sector, had minimal impact. This has become particularly evident when the police being deeply implicated in human rights abuses through police abuse, harassment, brutality of citizens. Honorable Speaker, as we condemn these actions by police, there is a need to interrogate the contribution factors by reaching out and talking to the different actors, including victims, their families, perpetrators of abuses, human rights defenders, as well as police and state officers. Honorable Speaker, it is on account of this concern that I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. 1, what is the success so far of ongoing police reform in the country? 2, how is the National Police Service addressing the psychological stress-related problems affecting the officers? 3, were police officers given any form of training when the police force was transformed from a force to a service? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one is referred to the Committee on Administration and National Security. And I see Honorable Koinange, the chair, is here. Let me get an indication of how long you would require. I know your committee is an extremely busy one. So let's hear what time you require, considering the workload that you have.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. We'll make a statement to Masara, but Honorable Speaker, you should also know that Masara is in my committee. And at the moment, what we're doing in order to answer him accurately, it will take quite some time, Honorable Speaker, because the committee right now has been trying to visit different police stations to enable to give a proper report of what has taken place in the police reforms. This will take some time, Honorable Speaker. But if he wish, I'll give him an answer, but it will not be according to what the committee wishes to give him, because we need to do a lot of investigation and visit to get a very accurate report for him.
What is your view, Honorable Masara, so that, because it is said that you are in the same committee,
Mr. Speaker.
And what the chair is saying is that you may not be able to do it very quickly and give you a comprehensive statement. Would you rather you wait for a long time, or you get a statement that will, a statement of some sort that can address some parts of your statement, and then the rest can be in course, on course, and in any case, you are in the committee anyway. What is your view?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the statements of the chairman, and the fact that I belong to that committee does not deter me from asking statements which affect the people of Kenya.
That's true.
Mr. Speaker, my concerns are very valid. These things involve the police officers and the public in general. My major concern is the psychological support given to the police officers, more so at a personal level. As we face the pandemic of corona, Mr. Speaker, you remember there are so many cases where the public have complained about harassment by police officers. Therefore, this is like an emergency, because the people demand to know what is being taken, what steps are being taken to ensure them of their security during such a time. As well, Mr. Speaker, if you go through the contents of my statement, it concerns the police officers themselves. Some of the occurrences are as a result of maybe psychological problems affecting these officers. My statement requests to pursue whatever the National Police Service Commission is doing to correct this matter, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Because these police officers are human beings. If the chairman is telling me it will take time, Mr. Speaker, that shows that this police officer will continue suffering.
Okay,
and the public will also continue
you've been heard, Honorable Masara. I am sure the chair is noting so that he can make a decision on what kind of a statement he can issue and when. But in the meantime, I see the minority leader has something to say.
Mr. Speaker, I want to really appreciate what Honorable Masara is asking, and I think it's a very important statement that he has sought, and the committee needs to look at it. But I just wanted to plead with Honorable Masara that listening to the requested statement, and important as it is, I think we should give this committee enough time so that when they bring this statement, it is comprehensive. This is something that is disturbing Kenyans, even in terms of human rights issues. And it is so complex because there are issues, as he has put it, that would involve looking into how do we deal with the individual police officers, what are the problems, is it the terms, is it the recruitment process? So it is a very comprehensive statement. If I listened, if I appreciated what actually the Honorable Masara sought. So I was just standing, Mr. Speaker, to ask Honorable Masara to allow the committee, in fact, the committee needs enough time. That time is what the chair should tell us. Yes. How enough is this enough time? So that we get a comprehensive answer to that question, that statement. Thank you.
Okay, just as I give the chair, is Honorable Kavinga interested in putting in something to this one?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I wanted to add that actually the committee, I'm a member of the committee, and I'm a member of the subcommittee that has been going around in some of the police stations, Mr. Speaker, trying to get the actual data on what is happening in each of the police stations. And the psychosocial effects of our police officers is one of the key things that we've been looking at. It's therefore important that the member gives us enough time. He's a member of the Security Committee, so that we can complete the report that we are making. That report is comprehensive. That report will enable this House to know what is happening with our officers and also the police stations that we have in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, so let's hear. I think from the chair we would be interested to know whether he wants to make an interim statement on it or he can wait, but how long
will Honorable Masara have to wait to have this statement responded to one way or the other?
Yeah.
What, for example, is the timelines of the activity that you are undertaking now?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. For example, right now we had requested to visit the area of Western, Nyanza, then we go to Northeastern, because, Honorable Speaker, until we are able to go to at least 30 counties in the country, we will not be able to know the extent of the problems that we are having with our police officers. So it will take time. But for Masara, Honorable Speaker, maybe another 2 weeks, I can give him only a statement to meet at maybe his concern. But for the whole House, it will take me at least another 4 or 5 months when I'm able to give a very, very conclusive report to the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think that's okay with you, Honorable Masara. Now, the rest you know you can do in the committee, but the issue now of, he says in 2 weeks he will give you some statement. He's actually giving you a warning that it might not be sufficient. I really don't think there is anything quite a problem with that.
Mr. Speaker, my only concern is they are part of these statements which need response from the National Police Service Commission.
That you will do. And in any case, you know now you are in that committee.
Chairman, being in that committee has given me a privilege of knowing what is taking place. That's why I decided to come to the floor of the House. More so on the budgetary issue, Mr. Speaker. At this financial year, Mr. Speaker, the National Police Service Commission requested for money to establish centers where police officers can be, the psychological services can be done to these officers. They were denied this money, Mr. Speaker. So if we'll wait for another 5 more months.
Now, I will not want to allow you to proceed in that direction, Honorable Masara.
Thank you, Mr.
You will be given a response in 2 weeks. Part of the people who will be facilitating this report to be given is yourself, because you are in the committee. Now, and many of these other things, you can even be able to canvass within the committee, and most of these issues you are raising are actually something that should be live in your committee now, on day-to-day basis, now that you even have a subcommittee on that particular. But you will get a statement in 2 weeks. Then the rest will be sorted out in due course.
I stand ready, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. So before we go to the other, the response, the issuance of a statement by the chairperson, NGCDF, I see Honorable Koros is now here. And he has given a good reason why he could not make it in good time. And I don't want to, ask your question, Honorable Koros. Ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sorry for delaying a bit.
Proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm asking question 041 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. What is the status of construction of Kapsoid Sondu Road in Sikawe, Soin constituency? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the company that is constructing the said road and state the amount of monies paid to them to date? When is the project expected to be completed? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing. Now, what is it, Honorable Kositany?
Thank you very much.
What's your point of order?
My issue, Mr. Speaker, is that if you'll allow me to get the letter here from my phone, there is a question, Mr. Speaker, I asked about the use of COVID funds.
And is that true? Let me see. Okay. I can confirm it is you.
Do you want to see the white beard?
No. Proceed.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the 23rd of April, Mr. Speaker, I asked for a statement from the Finance Committee on the use of COVID funds. And in it, Mr. Speaker, I asked for about 7 items for them to respond especially on the use of the funds that we are receiving from WHO for COVID. Mr. Speaker, to date, I have not received any response. And I remember, Mr. Speaker, when I was on the dispatch box there asking the statement, none other than the leader of minority kept saying that I was bringing Jubilee politics at that time. I don't know whether he still holds the same view now that we have serious exposures on the misuse of money that is meant to go and safeguard the lives of Kenyans through this pandemic. So, Mr. Speaker, it will be in order for us to know when this response can be given so that we may know and follow up on the use of the COVID funds. On this, Mr. Speaker, I also asked, why would we finance or give money to NSIS for contact tracing? And that is their job. They know every day who is where, and they already have their budget. So, Mr. Speaker, that is why I seek to get that clarification.
Honorable Mbadi, you know, I wanted to have Honorable Kosita finalize his issue because he was also rising on a point of order. So what is your point of order now?
Mr. Speaker, I think you are distracted a bit, but you had the Deputy Secretary General of Jubilee Party insinuating proper motive on me, Mr. Speaker, that the day he was seeking this statement, that I said he was bringing Jubilee politics. Mr. Speaker, I can't remember saying that. But even if I said it, he should have challenged me at that time to explain what I meant. Because now, when he's bringing it, he's bringing it with proper motive.
That's actually
Mr.
true.
Speaker, because he's trying to imply that I'm opposing holding government to account, which is something I cannot do. I'm the leader of minority, and if the Jubilee Party can help my side in holding Jubilee government to account, how on earth would I reject that? So, Mr. Speaker, I want him to explain exactly what he meant by that statement. Was implying that I'm trying to fight accountability in this House, Mr. Speaker.
I don't even want to, I will not give him an opportunity to explain that. I will only say that actually it would have been much better that intervention to have been brought forth at that particular day, on the 23rd of April or May, as you've indicated. But now, since this is water under the bridge, let's leave that one alone for now. Let's deal with the more substantive issue as to why you have not received a statement. And I'm saying that because I am seeing even one of the, probably if it was answered then, a question like I've seen now asked by the member for Gilgil probably would not have arisen because it's almost the same thing. So, and what only surprises me is that you sought a statement from the chair finance. Why would it not have been health at that point? Because I thought that is a matter health. What was your intention?
Mr. Speaker, it was the Speaker who was the chair then that directed that the Committee on Finance give a statement on the use of the funds, and I think it is appropriate that way.
Okay.
But since then, there has been a change of leadership, and when the leader of minority says, we don't know now which side is minority and which side is majority.
Now, you see, you are bringing politics again. Then, you know, Honorable Badi might have been right at the point which he, because I can see the issue, you see, for us, there's a house. A chair is a chair. We really do not care where they come from or which party they represent in Parliament. So, but let's hear from Honorable Chair Finance. That must be Honorable Wanga? Yes, it is Honorable Wanga.
Thank you, Chair.
And you can see she's probably seated somewhere.
Yes. Chair, Speaker, the chamber is free seating, really. Every member can sit on any place. And with COVID, the number that you are assigned in the list, that is the number that you sit on. But I'd like to say, Speaker, that as the member has correctly pointed out, there is a change in leadership, and therefore, I just want to commit that aside from the sensationalization, which the member intends to push, we shall look. But as you said, correct, we shall look as a committee at the question and see whether it is properly before our committee as far as the questions that he is raising. But I want to just urge the member to remove the sensationalization so that we deal with the issues as they are, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, even when you see things on the newspaper, you cannot come to the House and use them as a basis for agitation, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes the newspapers, and even this House does not allow for us to come and use the newspapers as a basis for sensationalizing matters that are otherwise very serious and Kenyans deserve answers to. So I just like the member to separate the politics from the real issues, and he will really get an answer that will satisfy not just him, but Kenyans who want to know what is happening.
What kind of timelines do you require, Honorable Nyasuna?
Mr. Speaker, if we can get the next 3 weeks, given that we are only meeting virtually, okay. If we can get the next 3 weeks, we should be able to come back with an answer to the member. Okay, just respond. You will respond only to the answer. Forget about the politics, because you see, this COVID is not political. It attacks anyone, rich or poor, one party or the other. I think, Honorable Kositany, I'm sure you would be satisfied with that. And please don't add anything else. Just say yes or no. I'm not so sure whether you are going to throw another one.
No, Mr. Speaker, I am not throwing another one, but it is good when we get advice from people who have thought us to be sensationalized issues.
No,
now we should stop that.
Now you have said that you are comfortable. Let's leave it at that. Let's leave it there. So we go to the next one, which is a statement by the NGCDF chair, one of the most senior members here. Actually, I think CDF has been lucky this term. We've had only very senior members there.
Thank you, Chair. A statement on fund allocation to constituencies for the financial year 2020-2021 and status of disbursement for financial year 2019-2020. Mr. Speaker, I wish to inform the House that the allocation of funds to constituencies for the financial year 2020-2021 is Kenya shillings 41,714,800,000. This means, Mr. Speaker, the fund allocation is 2.72% of the national government share of revenue, and therefore meets the criteria of minimum of 2.5% of the national government share of revenue. Mr. Speaker, Section 34 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act states that the amount be divided equally among all constituencies, subject to the provision of Section 8.1 and Section 23.1 of the same Act. And following this criteria, each constituency then will receive a total of 137,088,879.1 cents, inclusive of emergency reserve totaling to 7,192,206.90 cents for each constituency, Mr. Speaker. Is the same amount. Further, Mr. Speaker, Section 23.1 of the Act states that the expenditure for running the board and related purposes shall be set aside at the beginning of the financial year, and not more than 5% of the total allocation to the fund in the financial year may be used for this purpose. The annual budget of which shall be approved by the Cabinet Secretary with the concurrence of the National Assembly, National Government's Constituency Fund Committee. Mr. Speaker, therefore, the allocation to the board for the financial year 2020-2021 amounts to 1,959,483,000 25,000, which is approximately 4.69% of the total allocation to the fund. Mr. Speaker, I now go to the status on disbursement of funds to constituencies as at 4th of August 2020. May I also add that the House, inform the House on the same disbursement of funds. Mr. Speaker, I said as of 4th of August 2020. Now, the total receipt into the fund, this is important for members. There have been a lot of questions, Mr. Speaker. The total receipt into the fund in the year 2019-2020 was Kenya shillings 28 billion that has been disbursed to the constituencies. Now, 13 constituencies have received full allocation. 13 constituencies have received full allocation, while 271 constituencies have received an allocation of between 50 and 99%. 6 constituencies have received an allocation between 36 and 49%. Mr. Speaker, this means that there is a balance of 13.7 billion which is yet to be received by the fund from the Treasury for the financial year 2019-2020. The fund, Mr. Speaker, has pending receipts amounting to 4.97 billion relating to financial years 2011-2012, 2013-2014, 2014-2015, which has not been received to date. Therefore, the total arrears owed to the fund by the National Treasury is 18 billion 691 million 550,000. Mr. Speaker, due to the huge amount of arrears owed to the fund by the National Treasury, the committee in its last sitting, actually which took place yesterday, with your approval, Mr. Speaker, resolved to invite the Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury, to discuss on the way forward in relation to the mechanisms to release the pending arrears to the fund. And this morning, I want to confirm, Mr. Speaker, I spoke to the CS Treasury and has confirmed another meeting which we're going to hold before the formal one next week, Mr. Speaker. I have annexed details of the allocation for all the financial years, Mr. Speaker, to this statement, because it's a long list for all the financial years, all the constituencies which have not received the funds. Some constituencies are still owed funds from financial year 2011, 2012, 2013, for various reasons, Mr. Speaker. And I want to urge members, colleagues, some of the issues, the information I get is that there are certain queries, clarifications that have been sought to constituencies, development fund committees, which require, to be submitted to the board, and then the funds will be received. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge colleagues to take interest, to look at any questions which have been sought by the board or the Department of Planning, so that, the funds can be released. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask colleagues also, now given we have the ceiling, we have the funds that have been provided, to work on proposals expeditiously so that, we do not get into the problems of the past, so that the board can go ahead to act on the proposals and release funds for this financial year. But as I said, Mr. Speaker, just taken over. This is a new leadership. We will need time to ensure that we do what is expected of us, to see that members in their respective constituencies get funds to undertake the development they desire. And I hope this is we're going to do this properly, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to table this statement and the report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Wamunyinyi. Now, there is a lot of interest in this particular one, and I will be generous with the number of members who will be making interventions and contributions on this. So let's start with the Honorable Mulele.
Thank you, Chair. And before I make my comments on this, I would like to...
And Chair, probably I'll be giving about 6, so you could note the issues and then maybe respond to appropriately.
I would like to congratulate the chair, the new chair of this particular committee on CDF fund, the Honorable Wamunyinyi, who has received a double blessing, as it were. He has become chair of this, and he is also the only party leader that we have in this house, having been confirmed as the party leader of Ford Kenya. And I am sure... Sorry, Chair.
Let's leave that because
thank you, Chair.
There are some things that are a bit too contentious to bring to the chamber.
Thank you, Chair.
To the contentions that we already have in here anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for
let us allow those other ones to be dealt with appropriately elsewhere.
Thank you for your direction. But I wish to congratulate him. I'm confident that he is very capable and that he is going to do a good job in this particular chairmanship of the CDF committee in this house. The report he has given is good. He's new in the office, and I am confident, looking at the history of the man, that he's going to do a good job. But Chair, my concern is, this is the year, we are now in the year 2020-2021. The CDF board has not received the requisite funds for the year 2019-2020 from the Treasury. There is no explanation. There is no reason why this money has not been provided for purposes of CDF. We know in this country what CDF does. And if the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury cannot fund this particular fund, then he knows he's going to have trouble with this house, obviously. And I am speaking directly to him. He better pulls up his socks and provides funds to this fund, because this is the fund that the Mwananchi in this country sees. And we cannot stand here in this house and legislate and provide funds for anything else if the funds that go to the Mwananchi in this country in our constituencies directly is not being provided. I don't think we will do that. But having said that, I have also listened to the chair, and he has said that some of the constituencies have received the full allocation from whatever little that has been provided by Treasury. Speaker, I think the board needs to explain to us, because as far as I'm concerned, all constituencies in this country are equal, and whatever they receive must be distributed to the 290 constituencies on a pro rata equal basis. There is no reason why one constituency should receive the entire amount while another one has received only 36%. I know they will stand up and say that they have queries here and there, but I know that none of these members has received any indication directly from this board telling them that you have failed here and there. And if they have done so, I wish they could provide that reason to the members. But as far as I'm concerned, Honorable Speaker, members, constituencies in this country are equal. And there is no other reason why we should have
Okay, let's save time so that we can give more members. And I believe what you are saying, Honorable Mulele, is that the members should be given information because they are only oversighting. You know, there is nothing else they are doing other than oversight. So let's see, I'm trying to see this other side, and I have some gadgets nowadays that make it very useful. Now, but that should be the vice chair of that particular, no, that's the vice chair of a different committee. Yes, proceed. Dispatch. Or we go to the next one. Well, as you proceed to look for a mic, let me give. Yes, you have it now.
Yeah, this is okay. Speaker, I also want to add my voice on this issue. Speaker, I can assure you that we have a very difficult time in regards to the disbursement of the CDF funds. Unlike most of projects by the government, there is sense of ownership by the community in regards to this CDF. The level the community is following in regards to project implementation, project status is really high. That way, we are in a very difficult position. Recently, I have had difficult time with some of my constituents just because they were really asking, why is the implementation of project A, B, and C not taken over? It is like, they are painting a picture that the member of parliament, is not doing enough to ensure disbursement of the funds, or the funds has been dispersed and is not doing enough to ensure, correct implementation of the project. So it is the high time that these funds that is, owned at the grassroots level be given unique consideration by Treasury. The history has always been that this fund has been given special consideration. Mr. Speaker, I think my sister Gladys is the chair for finance and those who have directly dealing with the Treasury should follow, and the CDF chair, I don't know whether the deputy, okay, we have my brother as the new chair. I think should work to the Treasury and ensure that disbursement of these funds is done as soon as today.
Okay.
I'm saying this, Chair, as
okay,
I conclude.
Let's be brief, honorable members, so that other members can also have an opportunity.
Yeah, Chair, as I conclude, uniformity in disbursement must also be observed.
Very well. Honorable Atandi, who is top on the list here, but top on the list of requests.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to begin by congratulating the new chair for the report we have received. Chair, it appears that this House got it right when we made the changes of House leaderships. It's not like the Senate where everything is told. So I think I want to advise Senate that they should have given more seats to NASA. We would not be having the problem we're having. Here now we have strong leadership in our new committees.
Now you see, what has that to do with this CDF
But
thing?
Chair, let me just make my point.
Why don't you concentrate on the CDF for now?
Chair,
then we can leave the rest to these functions that we have in our constituencies.
Let me make my point, Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the CDF, I think we need to agree with the Treasury CS that CDF disbursement is done on a quarterly basis, and the report is given to this House, because it is not even right that some constituencies have received their full allocations, others are yet to receive even half. So I think this is something that the new chair needs to take up very seriously, so that the CS needs to understand that before they give any money to anywhere, because the budget, the departmental budgets in other areas have been fully disbursed. But we have a situation where this House is not respected. Even the fact that the CS can disburse resources to other projects, to roads, to health, to wherever, and some of the money that are disbursed has been stolen. So we need to be very serious, and the new chair and the new leadership of this House must ensure that this House is given their CDF, the first disbursement given to us. Otherwise, we cannot be sitting here to pass government agenda when we don't have, our projects are stalled on the ground. So I think this is the point that we must ensure.
Okay.
And the new House leadership needs to be firm. This is why now I think I miss Duale here on this one. Because Duale was very firm. And we used to go to CS to ensure that we get our money. I think the new majority leader needs to take up that job and ensure that we get our money in time.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
But just to inform you that on the first day of his leadership, the majority leader actually waded into this issue of CDF. And now that you have mentioned him, I'm giving him an opportunity to say something to it, and then I come to minority leader, and then I'll still give a few more members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start with the last comment. Indeed, we have a very able chair and a committee who we believe will be able to interact with the Treasury in terms of disbursement. And it's actually not fair to blame Treasury for the allocation of money to specific constituencies. That comes with the pace of implementation of projects and the proposals people have submitted. So, but we will continue, and we are in continuous engagement with the Treasury to ensure the money is disbursed to the
so that members can be able to use. Secondly, there is a lot of COVID budget. The Minister for Education should come up with every school to have enough minimum of 5 classrooms before January. This cannot come from CDF because already the CDF is not enough for such.
Okay, minority leader. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my starting point.
You're okay.
My starting point was going to be first that I think my brother Tandy, a very good friend of mine, I wanted him to be a bit cautious because really, even Honorable Maoka Maori, who is the Deputy Majority Whip, did fairly well as the chair of the CDF committee. I don't think we have much complaints. The complaints we have is regarding disbursement of funds from the Treasury, and I think that is something that we need to deal with. But I have 2 comments to make. Number one, the chair, CDF, and the leadership of the House, we can help intervene on this matter with the Treasury, because we have before. Remember, Mr. Speaker, when the Treasury attempted to reduce CDF by about 9 billion, actually took the effort of the leadership, both majority leader and myself, and the chair of the budget, then chair of the budget, yes, and we sat with the Treasury CS, and we agreed on how to correct that error, because it was even error in law. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to give confidence that we can discuss with the Treasury CS on that. But, Chair, the other thing that probably, Mr. Speaker, that I wanted also to mention is regarding, and this I want to address to the chair, that when the leader majority has just said that we need to increase classrooms, some of us have made proposals to transfer money from bursary, because we had not disbursed bursary, towards building classrooms. Because really at this time, you can't disburse bursaries. It will just be misused by schools. So I want the chair to follow through that and make sure that that is approved in good time. Because the board keeps on meeting and not dealing with that they have other more important agenda to deal with. My final comment is it should be understood, because sometimes what we say here is taken out of context by the public. The people who are responsible for planning and execution of CDF projects is A, the fund manager, B, the constituency committee, CDF committee. Our role is to oversight. And I just want to ask my colleagues that if we take our time on oversight role, then some of these issues that are coming here may be addressed. You would be very up to date with your constituents in terms of how much has been disbursed, what are the reasons, and if there is no genuine reason, really you can raise that matter with the chair of the CDF. Because if some constituencies are being given preferential treatment against others, then that must be corrected. But where I also, with all due respect to the majority leader, is that the board is really trying to make sure that if you still have balances of more than 10 million, they don't disburse money to your constituents. And they put pressure on you, really, if you request for more funds. So that is it is very rare to find that the availability of excess funds has blocked or stopped a constituency from receiving more money. I want to stop, but Mr. Speaker, there's something I was forgetting, if you allow me, just 1 minute. Much as we push for absorption of CDF, all departmental committees have a responsibility to make sure that they push for absorption of other budget lines. Mr. Speaker, we put money in the budget here. At the end of the financial year, the absorption rate is about 40%. Hence, you find roads are not being done in constituencies, water that was supposed to be drilled in constituencies are not done. All these monies, apart from CDF, we also expect almost near 100% absorption. There should be a very good reason why other budget lines, the absorption rate is as low as 40%, Mr. Speaker. There should be no reason. So let us not just focus on CDF. All departmental committees, it is your job to ensure near 100% absorption rate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are here discussing an issue of delayed disbursement of funds.
Let us be straight to the point.
That is not normal.
So that I can give more members.
I'm saying it's not normal. It's not normal because one of the issues that is troubling this country is the opening of schools. Really, we cannot say we are going to open schools when we have an opportunity to bring about a change for opening of these schools, and then we just decide to delay the funds. I'm trying to say one thing, that even for allocation for 2021 CDF funds should equally be released in good time, so that come January, we will not be regretting for having to interfere with the studies of our children. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Kainan, that will be good. Then we'll give more members if you are that brief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit perplexed and disappointed. And indeed, if Engineer Karua was here today, he will also be as disappointed as I am. Mr. Speaker, we have been taken back to the pre-1999 era. Mr. Speaker, one of the critical components in the formation of the CDF board, or the CDF infrastructure, let me use, Mr. Speaker, was to enable the Member of Parliament to have a facility that will enable the Member of Parliament to function independent from the executive or the other arms of government. Mr. Speaker, why Engineer Karua and those who are there at that particular time came up with this? If you reflect a bit even for a second, and look at the Member of Parliament in 1999 and the Member of Parliament right now, and compare with what we are complaining about, we realize that we have disappointed the 12th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, as members of Parliament. It's not fair to blame the Honorable Wamanyinyi. Look at the players. Look at the budget cycle. We have the Budget Committee. We have the CDF Committee. We have Treasury. We have the CDF Board, Mr. Speaker. And the relationship of these different entities was meant to enable the Member of Parliament and, by extension, the CDF infrastructure actually to get the necessary support. Mr. Speaker, I'm also surprised that today, the Member of Parliament, again, if you reflect on Chapter 8 of the current Constitution, if Kenyans down there realize that a Member of Parliament is complaining about disbursement fund of the CDF, then we have lost our oversight mandate. We have lost our oversight role. And therefore, Mr. Wamanyinyi and team, I thought the division, what you have tabled today, should have been the first item after the assignment of the appropriation bill. That should have come 1 or 2 days after that has happened, after His Excellency has ascended the appropriation bill. Now it's coming 1 month. This itself is delayance. I think I want to suggest the following. The Treasury mandaries will always manage us in line with their wish list in the budget-making process. But there is the exchequer realities, Mr. Speaker, which we must also accept. That being the case, Honorable Wamanyinyi and team, we will not accept your committee to come and complain on behalf of members of Parliament on the lack of funds. You need to deal with the Treasury mandaries Let them enable the Member of Parliament and by extension the CDF committee, let them release the money on time so that the Member of Parliament is not blamed simply because the Member of Parliament offers an oversight role in the CDF infrastructure. Because when the Act was amended, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this as I conclude. We need to also internalize our role as Parliament. This House, under the current Constitution, provides leadership on so many issues in the budget-making process, in the oversight role, Mr. Speaker, on legislation and so many other things. So if we complain today, how about the millions of Kenyans who expect oversight from us? And that's why, for me, I find this debate a bit misplaced. Honorable Wamanyunyi and team, and I know you are capable. I've worked with you in the past. I have worked with Honorable Maore. Please take your functions or your mandates seriously. Let the Treasury mandarins not reduce Parliament to a begging institution. Let's get what belongs to Parliament, and by extension that facility so that members of Parliament remain respected. And with this, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Please, go and deal with the Treasury so that what remains actually from the last year's budget is immediately dispersed so that members also get opportunity to have these funds released. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Haji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I stand to contribute to this, that we all know that the visible projects in the rural areas are the CDF. If you compare the CDF projects with the county projects, there is enormous difference in terms of visibility, in terms of people getting their felt need projects. CDF is that important. But when we hear that still 18 billion is yet to be released, it is very unfortunate. And we are now a new financial year. We are supposed to have got all the money of the previous financial years and be waiting for the first quarter for this financial year. It's unfortunate to hear that the money is still not there. I assure you that in the rural areas, CDF is what matters. There are projects that has been done by the county. Just 1 minute, please. 1 second. Projects that have been done by the county and contractors have not been paid for 3, 4, 5 years down the line. But the CDF normally, we give out the CDF committee gives out the project when the money is there, and immediately the project is finished, the money is paid. And that repetition is there with the communities. So money should come.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to support the majority of my colleagues in calling and demanding for speedy release of the CDF funds. And Mr. Speaker, it is very surprising. Majority of the CDFs, and I've even actually consulted with the majority of my colleagues, to this end have not even received even 50% of the support allocations. And Mr. Speaker, as we even actually as a country, we struggle with the pandemic of the COVID. And the schools are closed without even a clear indication so far to probably when our schools are going to be reopened. I will actually suggest that there is a lot of billion that we are reading being even wasted. They should be even allocated to the constituencies so that we actually supplement the CDF funds to help us construct majority of the classrooms and even provide water for the schools, as that is some of the requirements of the commissions that was set to look into this.
We will leave that there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Nyamita. And I see all members seems to be speaking the same thing. So probably I think we will have to close it somewhere. What is this different thing that is not NGCDF?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to also add my voice on this issue of delayed funds. And I want to also concur with the minority leader on the issue of disbursement of funds for other activities. Mr. Speaker, if you remember at the beginning of this pandemic, this House debated extensively measures that we would do to curb the situation in the country. One of the things that came up is the economic stimulus, which also even did provide money for us to be able to improve the school infrastructure across the country. To date, Mr. Speaker, there is no
format of how that is being implemented, no activity, whereas this house has actually moved. So in addition to delayed disbursement of funds for CDF, whereby we have many of our contractors today who have been paid money, who have done the work but have not been paid money. Some cleared their work as early as April. So we are talking about 4 months down the line. The excuse of about 10 million in the accounts is some of us had actually prioritized funds to be given for bursaries. And of course, therefore, you wouldn't disburse the money and the money is in the account. To rearrange, to reprioritize that, you have to do it at the board. And when you have actually done that, the request to the board is taking forever for them to be able to implement this. So it's indeed, I just wanted to task the committee in charge to follow up with CDF.
Okay.
To help us absorb this, Mr. Speaker, that they push the board to approve the reprioritization requests.
Okay.
And also the Minister of Education to implement what this House passed.
Honorable Ashiali, in a
Thank
minute, we take that short of period and we'll have more members.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me congratulate the current chairman of CDF and quickly point out that in his report, he has given us 13 constituencies that got and 277 constituencies that did not get. I think he needs to go further and tell us how many of these 277 constituencies that did not get, but they had already requested and they qualify to be given the allocation.
Okay.
Because these two different stories. And Chair, Speaker, this is coming when there is an aspect of preferential treatment, even in allocation of county government funds. I would really wish that the chair mentions the names of the 13 constituencies that got these funds so that we can know whether there's an aspect of preferential treatment in the allocation of CDF money.
Okay.
Last
that
last but not least.
No, that should be now.
Last Chair,
I mean, let us be fair to other members also, Honorable Ashiali.
This was very important, just one statement. I wanted to also raise, because we have already finished the budgeting of 2020-2021. I wanted to find out from the chair of budget committee how we handled this money that has not been paid to the constituencies. Is it under pending bills? Because we need to be told how they are going to pay this money. So far as we are concerned, this is the money that had already been budgeted for, and it has not been paid.
But surely it can't be pending bills. It can't be. Pending bill is something that has been worked for. I don't think it will be pending bills, Honorable Ashiali, on this particular one. But honorable members, I see we are all speaking the same language. Let the 10 who have spoken, or 11, speak on behalf of, maybe the only thing is I can cite cost to the other side, and then one gender. I mean, I don't know whether gender means the same as. So let's start from the member for, no, not the gender. I'm talking about cost there. And I had given you, let's start with the Honorable, is that Honorable Tayari?
Yes.
No, that is,
yes.
It was not you. It was the other member.
It's me.
Yes,
sit down,
because I had given him an opportunity. Yes, you, yes. You are not made a request, so it is you who had made a request and I had given you an opportunity. I don't know why you pressed.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Okay.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker. Nataka kwanza nimpongeze mwenyekiti mpya wa kamati ya CDF na namwombea heri katika kazi yake. Kitu ambacho ningependa kusitiza Mheshimiwa Speaker ni kwamba kuna maeneo bunge maskini ambayo yametegemea huu mgao wa CDF. Na kusema kweli hivi sasa watu wengi wanateseka, hawaoni maendeleo na wamezoea kuona ile kazi nzuri ambayo CDF inatumia pesa zake. Kwa hivyo pia mimi ningependa kuomba hizi pesa zitolewe mara moja. Sio ya kwamba tusubiri tuambiwe leo ama kesho kutwa. Wananchi wanateseka na wanaomba miradi ije mara moja. Na pia ningependa kumuomba mwenyekiti wa CDF, yako maeneo bunge mengine ambayo mpaka sasa kamati zake hazijapitishwa hapa bunge.
na imekuwa miezi mingi na hatujui sababu yake ni nini.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo hayo ningependa kuomba Mheshimiwa Spika yaongezwe katika mjadala huu ambao tunazungumzia kuhusu mgao wa CDF.
Okay. When are you meeting the Treasury CS, Honorable Chair? Is it next week, Tuesday?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Then I want to rule that you don't need to make any response today. Let's have you responding on Wednesday, actually with an intention of, giving the House what you have agreed with the CS in terms of especially disbursements and so forth. But you've heard the sentiments of members, and I think you really have a handful of things to look at.
It's true, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the members.
Because the basic issue is disbursement.
The basic issue is disbursement. I didn't want, Mr. Speaker, to enter into speculation, giving reasons before I get to speak to the CS.
Yes.
I'll be talking to him this afternoon.
Yes.
But we have invited him as a committee for next week, Tuesday.
Now, all these issues the members have raised, please take into consideration as you make your discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, all these are very important, honorable members. We cannot have the whole morning, and I'm sure members have spoken. We have tried to have as many members as possible speaking on it. So we go to the next order. Next order.
Order number 8, Committee of the Whole House.
Order members, we now in the committee of the whole house on a pretty brief bill, I would say, with just a few clauses, so we'll move fast on it. The Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill 2019. Order members, let's be together now in the committee of the whole, please. Clause 2. Honorable members, I propose a question that clause 2 be part of the bill. There is a proposed amendment by Honorable Gladys Wanga, Chair, Finance, please. What seat is that, Honorable Wanga?
24.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the whip is harassing me a bit. As we said, I can see Honorable Haika sitting right at the back there on the minority, what is traditionally known as the minority side. But it is because of the constraints of COVID and allocation of seats.
You are properly seated, actually. You are in the proper place.
Absolutely.
Proceed.
Chair, there was an amendment proposed by the committee to clause 2 of this amendment bill. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chair, I beg to withdraw this amendment. And the reason is,
thank you, Paris.
There is an amendment bill, Bill number 3 of 2019, that is going to be moved in the afternoon by Honorable Mwadime. And after deliberations, we feel that deliberations and discussions with the mover of the bill, we feel that this particular amendment, moving the time for which you have served in order to earn pension from 2 terms to 1 term, is better situated in the comprehensive amendment bill that will be moved by Honorable Mwadime this afternoon. So we felt that we should canvass it there. Honorable Chair, there is a saying in Kijaluo that you only escape from the rain with a light basket. Honorable Chair, this particular amendment is for members, older members, who served between 1984 and 2001. So we feel that we let them escape the rain with a lighter basket, and then we deal with the other comprehensive issues within the broader amendment bill, Mr. Chair. So I beg to withdraw this amendment.
Very well, Honorable Anga. I could tell the majority leader was wondering where is the rain and where is the bucket, but he seems to have understood. But that is considered as dropped. In that case, there is no amendment to that bill. Honorable members, I now put the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Yes. What is your point of order, Majority Leader? No, sorry, not Majority Leader. Honorable Adan Duare. I think I'm still living yesterday. What is your seat, Honorable Duare? What is the seat number? Behind there. What is your seat?
6. Chair, a leader is always a leader. And I am sitting on a ranking member, so you have not committed any crime. Chair, I'm sorry I came a bit late, but I had an interest in this thing, and I want to raise 3 fundamental issues with a lot of respect to the owner of the bill.
Order, just to be clear, what clause are you dealing with? Because we are done with clause 2 already. We are actually going to the title of the bill. Would you want us to, because the clause 2 is done. Just for your information, Honorable Wanga had an amendment, and she has dropped it because she hopes to prosecute the intention of that amendment in another bill in the afternoon. So it is actually, the House has made a decision. Honorable Dware, just to be clear.
But then, because the matters I'm going to raise, Mr. Speaker, are matters of constitutionality and matters of public finance. So what I will do, maybe I'll wait for the contributions so that I go on record, because I think, Mr. Speaker, that the route we are taking, and I really wanted to ask the Chair of Finance to table the views of the National Treasury in line with Article 114, but if she has, I need to get that letter and read, and then maybe later at the debate level, because I need to go on record. In as far as this bill is concerned, it's so important. But meanwhile, if you can direct the chair to give me a copy of what the National Treasury give when the committee sought their opinion in line with Article 114. I mean, I want the former MPs to get money, but I don't want the House to act in vain. I mean, this is a bill that I've supported with Honorable Bandi for all those years, but I really want us to make sure that it doesn't come back.
Very well, Honorable Duare. Honorable Wanga, that's a fair request by the Honorable Duare. And indeed, all members, let that information be available. Let's make progress.
Title?
Honorable members, I propose a question that the title be the title of the bill. There are no amendment to that. I therefore put the question that the title be the title of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose a question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Again, there are no amendments to that. I therefore put the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, the bill was as that brief. Mover. What's your number? That must be 3.
Thank you.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, you know, my former classmate had engaged me here, so I was not even following what was going on, and given
the bill moved very fast.
But you want me to move the reporting of the bill?
Yes, yes, please.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019, and its approval thereof without amendments.
Honorable members, I put the question which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019 and its approval thereof without amendments. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019 and its approval thereof without amendments.
Very well. Over.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report, and I will request Honorable Gladys Wanga, the Chair of the Finance Committee, to second the motion for the agreement with the report.
I second, Honorable Speaker, I second.
Very well.
Honorable members, I propose the question that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Is it the mood of the House that we put the question? Yes. Honorable members, I put the question that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as members of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as members of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019, be now read at that time. Mr. Speaker, I just have maybe a few comments to make. First, I want to thank this House sincerely for supporting this bill. Mr. Speaker, some of these MPs who served from 1983 to 2001, who are pensionable as we speak, actually earn peanuts in the name of pension. Some of them earn as low as 6,000 shillings per month, and that is why we have brought this to correct that so that at least they get 100,000 per month. Most of these people, when you see them, the money that they need is basically for medication. Many of them are aging and are sickly, but they have nothing really to even buy medicine. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to answer to I've seen some reports about, especially Ndungu Wainaina, who wrote a few things that I think were informed by lack of understanding of what is in the bill. He was questioning whether those MPs we are proposing to get pension, that during their time that they served, whether the Pensions Act was in existence. In fact, my answer to him is that that is the reason why this bill is covering from 1983. The Parliamentary Pensions Act came into effect from 1983. That's why we couldn't go beyond 1983. You could not make MPs who served at a period when the Act was not in existence to benefit. So this is not being applied in retrospect, but rather is being applied to those who are already pensionable. Only that the amounts that they are getting is too low. Mr. Speaker, this is also supported, because this case did not just appear from nowhere. There are two tribunals that were set up by this House through the Parliamentary Service Commission. The Majid Koka Tribunal and the Kiumi Tribunal. These two tribunals spoke to this matter and advised that we should consider raising the minimum pension. And this, I think, going forward, any member of parliament who is pensionable, but is getting less than 100,000 shillings, should get 100,000 shillings, at least, so that they are able to meet a few expenses. Mr. Speaker, finally, in terms of burden to the taxpayers, that is one of the reasons why we consulted with the chair budget committee, finance committee, and the leader of majority, and even the former leader of majority. We were in agreement that given these MPs deserve to get backdating of this payment to 2010, because that is the time that a Kiumi Commission report was adopted by Parliament. And sections of that report have been implemented, Mr. Speaker. It's only this provision that had not been implemented. So it would have made sense to backdate it to 2010. But looking at the economic condition of the country and the pandemic that we have, we felt it may not be desirable to backdate. So what these former MPs, we want to plead with them, wherever they are, that if the president assents to this bill, from the date of assent, at least they will get something per month to be able to meet the basic requirements. The number now has reduced, Mr. Speaker, significantly. They're just about 150. I was working the statistics. If you work with average of 80,000 per month, additional or increment per member as an average, without even factoring taxation, because this will still be taxed, the country will incur 144 million in the first year. 144 million. Mr. Speaker, I don't think that is too much pressure on our budget. I just want to wind up there and conclude that I want to thank members for supporting these MPs. I know there was the question of those who have served one term. Let us consider it in a separate bill, which is coming to this House, because this one, the objective was one. These MPs who have been crying, these former MPs who have been crying, who are looking so miserable. In fact, if you meet them, Mr. Speaker, they are people you have to sympathize with. So I want to thank honorable members. The other matter we can consider with the Madegu bill and discuss with the executive, the treasury, to see if it can be accommodated. But there is something that Honorable Duale raised, Mr. Speaker, regarding the opinion of the treasury. I think this matter came to the budget committee as a requirement of Article 114. And having discussed with the treasury, actually the treasury was initially opposed to the entire bill. But we discussed and agreed that we can shelve the arrears up to 2010, but allow these MPs to benefit. I saw some analysis in the media that widows and widowers, about 130, will also get. I don't know where that opinion is coming from. Because if you are already dead now, when the law is amended, you can't benefit. So, I mean, your widow and widower, whatever it is, cannot benefit. So that, I think, was also misinformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, allow me to move and request again Honorable Wanga to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Wanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this very important amendment bill by Honorable Mbadi, and to thank him, to thank Honorable Mbadi for bringing this amendment, because as he has correctly pointed out, these members who served between the years of 1984 and 2001, if you meet them, actually, this amount that we are increasing is basically to take care not of any luxury, but of the very, very basic needs, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the Mwadime bill in the afternoon, that is the amendment number 3 of the pensions.
The honorable members to the left of the Speaker, you must be alive to the requirements of the COVID rules of this House. I think you are offending those provisions. Honorable members, the Honorable Chieng.
I think it's...
Watch. You must be observant of these rules. Please just observe these rules. It is important. It will save your life. Proceed, Honorable Wanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the things we'll be looking at is how to set up a contributory scheme as well for medical purposes, for members who served in the past but are also serving at the very moment, so that we can be able to cover that as well. On the concern of Honorable Duale, and I will avail to him the comments that were made by Treasury to the committee, I think Treasury, as Honorable Mbadi has correctly pointed out, was concerned about the arrears from 2010. And that was going to be amounting to 1.15 billion. And under the circumstances, this was the major concern for Treasury. And that was the reason why we dropped the amendments of the committee that was requiring that these benefits be backdated to 2010. So under those circumstances, then those concerns have been covered. And as the minority leader has correctly pointed out, the amount now is not prohibitive. The other amendments we dropped was the one for reducing the members who have served to earn pension from those who've served from 2 terms to 1 term. That is also another amendment that we have dropped, and we hope to consider comprehensively when we are dealing with the more comprehensive amendments. So right now, it's only a light basket to take care of those members who actually are in a very difficult position at the moment. And let us not misinform the public on this matter, or say that we are trying to award ourselves, any pecuniary benefits, Mr. Speaker. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Allow me then to propose the question that the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019, be now read a 3rd time. I will allow a few comments on this. The Honorable Duale had showed a lot of interest. We'll start with him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that I have supported, but it's good to look at the bill from both sides of the coin. Well, first, I want to thank the committee and Honorable Mbadi for agreeing at least to drop that element of backdating it. That was to cost close to about between 1.5 to 2 billion a year to the taxpayer. And we are not very popular with the people of Kenya. So that the issue of amending the 2 terms to again 1 term is a very, very controversial matter. Very, very controversial. I mean, let's say it. But where I have a problem, because this House cannot act in vain, and we remember the story, the bill on Honorable Wakape, where the president, it was only 2 clauses, and he rejected both and returned, and the bill died. Article 114 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, requires consultation with the National Treasury, and the Treasury, Mr. Speaker, provided a very adverse opinion on this bill. And that's why I was asking the Chair of Finance at least to provide me with that copy. It should go on record that the opinion they gave is very, very, very adverse. So, Treasury providing that adverse opinion, and from my experience as the former leader of majority, once the felon have been prepared, a consultation takes place between the Office of the Attorney General, the State Law Office, and the ministry concerned. So if at this stage they have given an adverse opinion, there is a high likelihood that they will give a more adverse opinion to the president when it comes to signing this bill. Secondly, the element of the financial sustainability is very, very crucial that we must understand, taking into account the situation of the economy now. This bill will cause serious strain to the exchequer. But more worse than that, and I think we must live to the fact that this is going to incite all the other sectors within the civil service Because currently, we are increasing for the members of parliament. What will stop a permanent secretary? What will stop another civil servant say, yeah, fine, even me, my amount must be, my pension must be increased. So I hope and pray that the chair of the committee and the leader of majority do a further consultation once the vellums are ready with the National Treasury, so that they don't take that same adverse opinion to the person who has sent it to law. Because this bill will not go to the Senate, in my opinion. This bill does not concern counties. Yes. It doesn't concern counties. And the senators, I think they have only served for one term. They should not be worried. The second team is now the ones who are in the House. So I think because this is a bill that I really wanted, and I supported Honorable Bandi, but it's good that I raised these two issues. One, it will create a spiral effect within the civil service, in that if the members of parliament can increase their pension to 100,000, what about us? What about those of us who are in the civil service? And of course, you know, the laws that this House has passed, the fair administrative justice, you know, the provisions in the Constitution on discrimination. So this is we don't want this bill to die. We want this bill to survive. And because why did we say that we must increase? If you see some of the members of parliament currently who come around here, they earn about 32,000, 33,000, some of them 40,000. And with the current situation, you know what 32,000 can't even be fair. If the member is coming from Migori, let's say the first member of parliament of Suna, that time maybe it was not even called Suna, it was called something else, Suna East. If he comes from there all the way to Nairobi, I don't think whether it will serve him even the transport and even the accommodation. So that was the reason. And you know, it's good to protect the dignity of leaders. But I hope the leadership and even our speaker should deal with the matter of the adverse opinion by the National Treasury. We must be alive to the fact that this is going to cause more spiral within the civil service. But I'm very, very happy that we have dealt with the issue of backdating. The issue of backdating was a very, very serious issue in terms of sustainability in paying within the exchequer. I beg to support.
The Honorable Ali Athman, member for Lamu East.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I wanted to contribute for the last motion here, CDF.
Very well. The Honorable Athman will now move to the Honorable Kositani, member for Soy. The Honorable Kositani, not desiring to be in the House, we shall now move to the Honorable Junet Sheikh, member for Suna East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to thank first the committee and the owner of the bill. That, Mr. Speaker, this bill is very timely and is going to alleviate problems that we've seen our former colleagues are facing. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the age bracket of the members, the former members of parliament, this bill is targeting, Mr. Speaker, these are people who are in dire need of assistance, Mr. Speaker. Some of them are of old age, Mr. Speaker. They are above 70, 80 years, Mr. Speaker. And some of them, one or two, I attended their burial, Mr. Speaker. They were really, really in dire need of help, Mr. Speaker, and they were buried as destitutes, Mr. Speaker. But having said, Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with the former majority leader that it might spiral in other parts of the civil service. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue of 114 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, is partly advisory, Mr. Speaker. It's supposed to advise. But that's why bills are taken to the Budget and Appropriation Committee so that they decide on the issue properly. But if Treasury has advised in one way or the other, it is, I think, the prerogative of the committee to either agree with them or not to agree with them. Because this is part of the law-making process, Mr. Speaker, and it cannot stop at certain point because of the executive part of government saying that they will not. They will have, in the end, the head of the executive will have a say on the bill. He can either agree or disagree with the bill as we passed it, but the element of treasury is an advisory part, Mr. Speaker. Having said, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee because these members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, some of them come to parliament here. When you look at them, Mr. Speaker, you will have mercy on them, Mr. Speaker. If you look at their shoes, Mr. Speaker, you will be shocked. You can't look at them, Mr. Speaker. These are people, Mr. Speaker, you know, one time you will be also a former member of parliament. And you will need, you will even miss money to buy medicine, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is one bill that we must support it by all means so that our former colleagues, who are actually in old age, some of them are as old as 60, 70, 80. They are almost, you know, on the sunset of their life. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I support, Mr. Speaker. And I urge the President to assent to this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to just inform the House and the whip, my whip, that actually the whip is right. And I want to point out that Article 114 says that if it is a money bill like this one, that must go to Budget and Appropriation Committee at the pre-publication stage, not even after publishing, for it to proceed. And the publication will only proceed in line with the advice from the Budget and Appropriation Committee. And the Budget and Appropriation Committee will consult with the CS Treasury. All this was done. And actually, Treasury had a feeling that the bill should not proceed. But after consulting, there were certain aspects that were dropped by the Budget Committee. One of them was backdating the payment to 2010, and also other things like including those who have served one term. Now, that is why the bill went to publication minus those provisions. So I think we have met the requirement in the law. And that is what I wanted to add onto what the leader, the whip, minority whip has said.
Leader of majority on point, but that pre-publication scrutiny for bills in this House, I think that is a rule that this House needs to relook at. Because I think a lot of members' bills find their graveyard at that scrutiny by fellow members who now sit on other members' proposals. Leader of majority, you have something to say to this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think we are at the third reading of this bill. And it's unfortunate that so many comments are coming that ideally should have been canvassed at the second reading. And perhaps members just need to know when to debate a bill. At this point, the House has already made a decision that it's in the best interest to have this bill passed this way. So I also want to say that perhaps we should not be second-guessing the actions of the president. That's tantamount to actually discussing the president in this House, that he's likely to act in this manner or not. Let's cross that bridge when we get there. And if there is anyone who should be bringing that information, it should be me, not any other person. So Mr. Speaker, let's be fair to the members who served in this parliament. They are pensionable in the first instance. I think that's one thing. They are already on a pension. So we are not giving them a pension. But the only thing we are doing is bringing that pension of the 6,000 to what is its present value today, if one was to look at the current, the best terminology, that somebody who was entitled to 6,000 in 20 years ago, what is the current value of that 6,000, right, today, so that they can at least, we can try to cushion them against the vagaries of inflation plus all those things, because they serve this country with honor. They serve this country with dignity. It will be unfortunate for us to let them now go out in dignity. And this is something we need to look at, not just for members of parliament, but even from the sports people, from all those people that we see suffering after bringing honors and glory to this country, but we abandon them at their hour of need. So Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the House for this decision and thank the Leader of Minority and the party for sponsoring this. And then we can now canvass other decisions as we now look at the motion, the bill, which is sponsored by the Committee on Pensions when it comes into the House in the afternoon. And then we can have that robust debate on the pros and cons and what to do in between. But on matters to do with what the President is likely to do, I would ask the House to preserve that for me to advise the House. Thank you.
Leader of Majority, you want to have the prerogative, the sole space for determining what the President might do. But it is the business of this House to think what the President might do with the laws that we pass here. The last comment will be from the Honorable Wanyonyi, member for Kwanza.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to one set that, and I want to correct the Leader of the Majority, this House debate and make resolutions for the people who represent. The President is informed, and I want to take it from me that you know, you go there on our behalf, and we are just trying to help you get more points to be able to convince His Excellency the President to assent to this particular bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, that surely has been mentioned by many members of this House. Our colleagues, our former members of Parliament in this country, actually are living in very...
Chair, the Honorable Anyonyi, just hold on. Chair Finance? Chair Finance, please go back to your seat.
Yeah, distance. Mr. Speaker, I want to say at one time, it was so pathetic that a member of Parliament traveled all the way from Nyanza. When he got here, he couldn't get the relatives. I had to house him in my house because he was not able to actually get a place to stay. Mr. Speaker, this bill is very timely, and I want to inform our Leader of the Majority, get to His Excellency the President, let him assent to this yesterday. We need this. Our people are suffering. You go, you meet some of them, and I've seen you talk some of them out here. And therefore, my point is that some of them, and I think this is very timely, there are cases where we have, I'm told, some of these members of Parliament did not contribute to the pension. But that was not their problem. The problem was this same House that should have actually passed that act on as far as pension is concerned. So we should not have any fear on this. I want to encourage those going to present this House that is in their need. I had also come up with the amendment, which again I'm talking to the finance, the chair of the finance and the minority leader, and to shelve this until this afternoon because we had some amendment, Mr. Speaker, that he wanted to put in. And therefore, I support this bill and hope and pray that it will be ascended to yesterday and not tomorrow. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members. Having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum in the House for purposes of making this decision, I therefore put the question, which is that the Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 45 of 2019 be now read a third time. Will as members of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as members of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Parliamentary Pensions Act.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 17 of 2019. Resumption of debate interrupted on Wednesday, March 4, 2020. Second reading.
The Honorable Manzo. Oh, today you're on that side. You are first on my list, the Honorable Manzo. Let me kick this off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, the public service has the regulations which are set by the head of civil service, and those regulations for a long time had not yet become law. And as far as I'm aware of them, they operated as a practice, Mr. Speaker. And now it's very, very important to make them as law. And also, this also goes to Chapter 10 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And for that matter, it will be good so that we have a certain code of conduct which is legalized, as it just used to be a practice, and it was not really based on any law as such, and it was mainly done by the head of civil service. But now the moment you put it in a law, then there are expectations of people who serve the public, people who serve in public offices, Mr. Speaker, or generally people who have a duty to others. But the main idea, Mr. Speaker, is service to the people, service to humanity, which a lot has been done, you know, by the people in the public service. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that the people in public service are very educated and very experienced, and are usually very, very useful to the country and for what they do. And there are so many departments, Mr. Speaker. So it be now legalized, Mr. Speaker, or be debated so that it can be formalized. Mr. Speaker, it would be a good practice, and I beg to support. I thank you.
The Honorable Kaunya Oku, member for Teso North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support this bill. It's a very important aspect, especially in the public service progression. And it is important, particularly because the public service is the backbone of the country's development. So whether we look at issues to do with the recruitment, whether we look at issues to do with the progression and welfare, the public service, I think these particular regulations will help in improving the performance of the public service. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
The Honorable Tutoik, member for Mogotia.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on these regulations. I just stand to say I support, and also the fact that at this particular time we have so many youths who are not really having jobs. So good regulations will enable us to get many people get recruited on merit, and also get opportunities to get diversity. So for that, I beg to support.
The Honorable Buyu Akinye, member for Kisumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and I'd like to say that values and principles must be the guiding factor in terms of engagement for any opportunities, and that, of course, leads to fairness and good practices. I beg to support, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Mizigi, member for Taita.
Asante, Bwana Spika. Hata mimi naunga mkono. Ni kwamba kwa sasa tunao vijana wengi ambao wako nje, wanahitaji makazi, na ninaunga mkono kwa sababu hii itapatiana mwelekeo mzuri. Asante.
The Honorable Were Ongondo, member for Kasipul.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My card is on the item 11. Thank you.
The Honorable Pasaris, Rosanna, member for Nairobi. Very well spoken. Very good principles espoused. But I was just reckoning and wondering, when you come from certain communities, of course, we should be inclusive, spoken to inclusivity in the nation known as Kenya. But the difficulty sometimes comes in when you come from a certain portion of the country that is perceived to be partaking of a larger portion of the national cake, and you have better qualifications from another competitor for a certain position who comes from a community that is perceived to not be partaking in the national cake, and then now you are told you have to step aside because this person with lesser qualification has to take it because it's difficult. But it is our challenge. We have to face it and make sure that every Kenyan feels that he's a part of the country. Very well spoken, member for Nairobi. We'll have contribution from the Honorable Hulufo Oda, member for Isiolo North. Hulufo Oda? Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very short amendment. Actually, it relates to amendment of Section 16 of Public Service, that is Values and Principles Act. And it's very much in order. The Principle Act, in terms of what is supposed to be reported on, didn't provide some crucial information. And the amendment which is proposed, which I support, actually brings in the aspect of reporting annually to His Excellency and also to Parliament. And the specific things which were not in the Principal Act and which are being proposed to be included in terms of reporting, the important ones are actually the composition of the public service. All the service commissions to provide reporting on number of people who are employed, their gender, and also their ethnicity and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, as a country, most of the times we complain that certain ethnic groups are either dominating in certain commissions or certain sectors, and certain ethnic groups are being left out. And therefore, when this information is provided by the various commissions, both the national commissions and also the public service, county public service commission and constitutional commissions, then His Excellency and also ourselves as members of Parliament who do oversight will be discussing these issues from point of information, so that when we say certain ethnic groups or certain regions are underrepresented or overrepresented, then we shall be arguing from point of facts, and therefore the various recommendations which will be put across to those commissions to correct those anomalies will be guided by facts. This being a very short amendment, I wish to support, and it actually helps us to achieve the values and principles of public service as provided for by Article 232 of our Constitution. Thank you very much, and I support the amendment.
Well, the Honorable Murigi, member for Igembe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the amendment. Mr. Speaker, in this country, the young people are more disadvantaged, Mr. Speaker, as far as employment is concerned. And it's the high time, Mr. Speaker, the Public Service Commission to be providing annually the report of the people or the persons who are employed each year, Mr. Speaker, so that we can get the clear picture of the employment curve or the employment which is used to take place in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for example, currently as the people are suffering due to this pandemic of COVID, Mr. Speaker, there are proposals by the government, Mr. Speaker, to give out some employment. But if you go outside there, Mr. Speaker, very few people who are employed according to the maybe ethics, Mr. Speaker, or from the place where they come from. Because if you are not maybe inclined to a certain person or to a certain area, Mr. Speaker, you are not considered as far as employment, Mr. Speaker, is concerned. Then, Mr. Speaker, the inclusivity during employment, Mr. Speaker, is of much importance also to be, the employment to be more inclusive, Mr. Speaker, regardless of the community you are coming from, Mr. Speaker, you are supposed to be given the opportunity to get a job. Because, Mr. Speaker, in many cases, some of the people are discriminated maybe because of the sounding of their names, Mr. Speaker, whereby you hear a certain community is the one which is benefiting from some specific employment, Mr. Speaker, while leaving out other communities, Mr. Speaker. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the age factor. Mr. Speaker, the young people of this country are being discriminated a lot, Mr. Speaker, because of the age, because of the experience they have, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, myself, I was elected by the people of Igembe South Constituency without doing other jobs, Mr. Speaker, in other offices, and I am delivering to the people of Igembe South Constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, matters experience, Mr. Speaker, should be put aside so that at least the young people can benefit from the employment in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the young people are not engaged in activities, Mr. Speaker, many crimes erupt, Mr. Speaker. And it is not right, Mr. Speaker, to see the young people of this country, Mr. Speaker, being killed maybe because they have engaged in illegal drinks, Mr. Speaker, whereas they have the capacity, they have the ability, Mr. Speaker, to do something which is beneficial to this country. With that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Wanyonyi, member for Westlands. Yes, Leader of Majority, I see you. After the member for Westlands, I'll give you an opportunity. The member for Westlands?
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the civil service is a very, very important agency for employing Kenyans. And we, like Mr. Speaker, the people who are left out every time this criteria is followed, Mr. Speaker. People living with disability or persons with disability. Mr. Speaker, there is in the Persons with Disabilities Act, it is provided that 5% of the civil service should be given to the people with disability. The people with disability who are qualified, the people with disability who have everything that is meets the criteria, Mr. Speaker, for employment, but you find they are left out. They are not, in fact, even the kind of I mean, Mr. Speaker, the environment at the place of work sometimes is the one that makes even the employer to think that employing a person with disability is an expensive affair. So I believe we should critically look into this so that all Kenyans are given equal opportunity to access to job opportunities, Mr. Speaker, because this is an area that makes people, Mr. Speaker, to subject them to abject poverty and then suffering because of denial to access, Mr. Speaker, the employment. Mr. Speaker, the values, I think the civil service is important for improving the quality of life for people. So we should look at all aspects when we're employing and the criteria and give equal opportunity to every Kenyan who has met the qualification. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Majority, you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in supporting this amendment, which aims to further help on accountability on the realization of the national values as articulated in Article 232 of our Constitution, which among other things required that there should be diversity, not just in terms of regions, but also in terms of ages, in terms of gender, in terms of inclusivity, so that all the Kenyans can be included. But most importantly, also emphasizing the higher standards of professional ethics, meritocracy, and fair competition in the recruitment. And it will be obviously very good to then see how all these have been captured within the report from each of the commissions, and including any of the service commissions, and also both at the county service commission, both at the national service commissions, the totality of that, so that we can see how those values have been captured within the framework of the people who serve this nation. Mr. Speaker, it's obviously a good amendment, and we hope it will improve on that accountability and force people to think into the future that they'll be called to account to show who are the people who've been hired. Mr. Speaker, I'm taking from one of the comments, I think you may have put it in passing. When this accountability is called for, there's also a danger that a report like this could also be used negatively to deny certain people who merit appointment that they will not be appointed because they have exhausted their quota. I'm looking at, and I was very keen when Honorable Mwirigi was talking. Being a youth, his emphasis is on the youth. Yes, we have so many people who have already passed a certain age. Much as we are told that people over 60 are more productive, there's also the claim that perhaps we need to have younger people. So if you are applying and you're over 50, you're likely to be told, based on this report, that your age quota has already been exhausted. So I hope to see adverts coming out in the future saying for this position, anyone over 45 need not apply because their quota has been exhausted, which will then go counter to Article 27 of the Constitution, which says nobody should be discriminated on account of their age. So it's something that we need to look at, say it's a good thing, but we need to appreciate its importance and its use by balancing the various interests. Similarly, there are some communities that, because of history, they are people who are recruited and are permanent and pensionable. Those people are still in service.
Leader Majority, just remind you, just recently in this very house, we had the interesting case of the commissioner to TSC. Yeah.
I'm aware.
Not the honorable. Council Mbagi, who we had sought to discriminate on the basis of ageism. And this House agreed unanimously that we should not discriminate on the basis of age. So it is a conundrum, really. But proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I think I'm just bringing this point because when these laws will be subjected to some challenge in future, the courts would then be coming here to see what was the wisdom of this House in passing this law. It's not obviously to bar anyone from being recruited. I think we are passing this law to enhance the quality of disclosure in terms of how the various commissions have actualized the values, what challenges they are having, and perhaps some of the things that we're coming up is, yes, we couldn't stop hiring this person, although the average age of the commission is in the 60s, right? Much as we need younger blood, but we couldn't discriminate against him because of Article 27.
Leader Majority, I'll give you 1 minute. You should remember that we have limited the time now, but you could finalize in the next 1 minute.
I still have my turn.
You still do?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. But I wouldn't even take the 10 because I want members to contribute. But I just wanted to put that caveat that even as we legislate, we must not allow this positive reporting to be used negatively against people that their quota is exhausted, either on gender, on age, on people with disability that they are told, no, you already exhausted your 5%, so we cannot take you, much as you are meritocratic, you merit the job, or even between the various regions. Mr. Speaker, I also want to point out that, yes, we are looking at each commission will report. So we are going to have several reports coming.
Leader Majority?
No, I would like the member to offer the information within his own contribution.
Very well. Proceed.
So for now. But I would like to urge that as we get the different disaggregated reports from each of these commissions, for us as a House to be able to appreciate the full picture of the diversity and the distribution at the national level, we will then need an aggregation of all these reports. There's no law that provides for that, and I do hope that we can have a framework that we will be able to see so that we don't make a decision based on Public Service Commission bringing a report, Teacher Service Commission bringing a report, or indeed the Nyandarua County Assembly bringing a report showing that 70% of the people come from Nyandarua, but when you now look at the Nakuru or whatever in totality, you might be able to then balance the different, or 47 reports, we'll be able to see the totality. So we will need to get some aggregated report that can help in us then understanding how the Kenyans are spread in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of ability, in terms of people with living with some disability or the other, because as a country, we want to make sure, even in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, that nobody is left behind, that everyone is brought into the national service and to bring the diversity in their contribution. So, Mr. Speaker, with those caveats, if they can be incorporated somehow into the future, in the interpretation, I support this amendment.
Thank you, Leader Majority. SDGs, nobody should be left behind. All of us should move together. The Honorable Chepkut, member for NAPCO.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support. Public service is the nerve system of this country. I will address the following. I will address diversity, distribution, and inclusivity. Values, principles are great virtues. Having said that, we are 43 tribes in this republic. Doesn't matter the tribe you come from. It is all about meritocracy. It's all about qualification, performance, abilities, and capacities. Having said that, Speaker, sir, allow me or permit me to comment on Wanyore. My great boss, the late Waziri Biwott, and the late President Moi, love Wanyore people. Reason is all about trust and performance. When the late P.S. Ambuka, who happens to be the district officer of our own Elgeyo Marakwet County, was promoted because of his performance. I want to say that today, 70% of the total population of this country are young men. They don't have experience, they have qualification. Senior positions in this republic, I want us to include people above 60 years and above, below 30 years and above. Age doesn't matter. You know, when you age, the creed is low. The degree of creed is very low. Speaker, sir, you've told us about Karanja Mbage, who was appointed at the age of 65, not because of anything, because of meritocracy and because of qualification. Speaker, sir, I want to say, having been a public servant, a gazetted officer of this republic in public administration, progression is the biggest problem. You stay in a job group for so long without promotion. So we want progression. We want motivation. We want Public Service Commission to inject motivation and progression. Promote people according to their performance. And again, I want inclusivity. I want the 43 tribes to be included.
The member for Enapkoi, just hold on, there's a point of order from the member for Kisumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for the current speaker to actually insinuate that age is the determining factor of greed or corruption, given what happens in this country many times? Thank you.
Point noted. All I was saying, in employment,
the Honorable Chepkut, you have corrected yourself. I think greed cannot be associated with any age. I think
correct.
This is a personal.
Thank you, Speaker.
And the commissioner you refer to is not Karanja, he's Nganga Mbage.
Oh, sawa. Sorry.
Mbage.
I was only correcting.
But we must, all the same, we must condemn greed in whatever age it might.
I condemn in the strongest term possible that leadership is a calling from God to serve humanity with justice, with fairness and integrity, as opposed to personal creed and sycophant. I know what is happening in this country. We are facing political turbulence. But I thank His Excellency, the 5-star general, because he is a great captain. Thank you.
The Honorable Chepkut, you've run out of time. I had protestations when I gave you an opportunity to speak that you had just walked in. But you are actually on top of my list when you got the opportunity to speak. We try to be fair also here. We shall have the Honorable Kingola Makau. Yeah, Bunyasi, I see you. You are very near. You are very close to speaking. Just hold your horses for a jiffy. You will speak. The Honorable Kingola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me put my weight on this Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill. Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues who agree that it's about equity, diversity, and equal opportunities for every Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, public service is the only sustainable job that Kenyans can get. It has security of tenure, and Mr. Speaker, if not well distributed, it will go to some sectors, some regions, and discrimination will arise. Mr. Speaker, we have seen in the past a few accounting officers, they don't even adhere to the public service principles. They will employ their own, not caring, notwithstanding. Mr. Speaker, today, this country, we have so many graduates. We have so many qualified youth, qualified personnel, men and women. But because of where you come from, Mr. Speaker, it may deny you an opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, I think this House as the opportunity to implement and make sure that anybody going against this faces the law accordingly. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it takes me aback. You walk into a public office and you find more than 50% of the personnel come from the same region or speaking the same language. And yet, it is in our constitution that a certain number of people of the same ethnic group should not work. But when you walk to these offices, Mr. Speaker, because of impunity and what the previous speaker was saying, greed, someone fills an office with his relatives, with his tribesmen. And Mr. Speaker, I think it's high time. Corruption, we must start fighting from within. And this is the epicenter of fighting corruption, the National Assembly, the Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I think this motion is timely. Even at a time like this, during Corona, there are so many avenues, there are so many opportunities that have been given. But Mr. Speaker, the passage of the information of employment opportunities, even the public service, Mr. Speaker, it is blinded. It is not given. So many Kenyans will not have access to information. Sometimes it is put in very small adverts in our dailies that you cannot even see. Or if they put it today, tomorrow there are interviews. So you can imagine someone who is in Turkana, someone who is in Lamu. If the interviews are being done in Nairobi, how will they access? Mr. Speaker, I think it's high time. And I remember in this House, we passed a law on information. It is important. If there's a public service opportunity or job opportunities, let it be put in time, advertised, so that every Kenyan who can qualify, Mr. Speaker, can get that opportunity. And as Kenyans, you know, that's the only way we can improve our loyalty. Unless this is done, Mr. Speaker, our youth will grow up with that attitude that you must give something for you to get something. I think we should streamline our laws so that Kenyans can benefit from public service public service, so that it's, you know, we must have equity and equality put together so that Kenyans will feel that the government is doing justifiable and the distribution of job opportunities in public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
The Honorable Bunyasi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I almost thought that the button wasn't working, but actually it was. I do support, Mr. Speaker, sir, any move towards strengthening our value systems, working within principles and strengthening value systems. If we followed that, it wouldn't be where we are in terms of the contestation between our diversities, among our diversities. But going forward, there's always time to correct. You correct in one time and you go forward doing differently. But I think if we're going to do that also, Mr. Speaker, we as leaders must learn to speak truth to authority, to speak truth to ourselves. I think we have come from an era which has been particularly lopsided. We've come from an era in which political formations prescribe details and go to points that distort any kind of balance there might have been, or improvements in balance there might have been. I would ask, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the register of political parties also, in reviewing coalition agreements, must make sure that clauses that say we shall divide all positions in half, and if it's a two-way contest, means there will largely be two communities in it, even though they attempt a bit to perhaps increase the communities within the duos that enter this agreement. I think we must all be restrained explicitly. That's one. Two, I think the reporting arrangements have to be clear. How shall we know it's being done, even when it's agreed? I think that the reporting arrangements need to be clear, and violations need to be punished. Violations of officers who manage or sit or preside over arrangements that distort these extremely important, though soft, not hardware, extremely important considerations that this country needs at a time like this. Mr. Speaker, I would expect that other than the Office of the Auditor General, that should also look at this. Any other any other agency should also report explicitly on it. When we do vetting here and accept recruitments, and you say, well, but there isn't sufficient, no evidence that this institution is hiring in a sufficiently diverse way. The argument sometimes you get from among ourselves is that, oh, but they are Kenyans. Of course they are Kenyans. Of course they are all Kenyans. In fact, that is really a no-brainer. But the point should be that they should report at the end of the period to say, or maybe at the time that we are confirming, an explicit report should say, if I hired this additional person, this is what my demographic map would look like in my institution. Or looking back a year, from what we hired, this is how it looked like. It's extremely important. But I have then one concern, Mr. Speaker. We are at a transition stage as communities in the modern era. We're still concerned exclusively and to a large extent on where our mothers came from and our fathers came from. These are the things that define our ethnicity. But going forward in the modern economy, we have to think about residence. So that if somebody is from Nambale in Busia and is a resident of Nairobi, they're applying as residents of Nairobi, or even born here, you can't categorize them or recategorize them by virtue of their names or by virtue of where their ID cards of their parents came from. That's retrogressive. I think we must grow to a point where residence progressively becomes the consideration to have. Now, it is possible that you may be a Bunyasi, born in Nambale, but actually probably moved over to Kilifi, and now you essentially you are in Kilifi. Now, they can't retrace me back to where I moved them, maybe sold my land and bought land someplace else. I know people might say, if we did that, we may get the ethnicity issues coming from each of those, but really converging into a single ethnicity, for example. But I think it's really important, and I find it completely depressing that if I'm from Nambale and I live in Nairobi or I live in Nakuru, that I'm not being considered by virtue of where I live, where I've invested. I'm being considered by virtue of where my parents were at the time that I was born. That also is retrogressive, and I think that we need to look at it very well. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thought that that cases where in institutions.
The Honorable Bunyasi will allow you. I don't think the time had lapsed. I think you still had a minute.
I didn't see the. That's an ambush, Mr. Speaker.
I'll allow you 1 minute. So
1 minute, thank you. So let me just. Okay, and that sort of distorted my train of thought. But I was saying that we used to have institutions. I thought that was a matter of the old, where some institutions could function in a single language. I think we must get out of that. We really must get out of it. And if we don't, we are headed in a very, very bad corner. I think the examples I've been given about Tanzania are helpful, very helpful indeed. I think we should look at it. We must look at it. But as I conclude, let us temper ethnicity with some other consideration, such as residence. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, sir.
The Honorable Bunyasi, you know, I always enjoy your conversation in this House. Our fixation with where we come from, this ethnic fixation of where one of us comes from, I think we must, it runs contrary to what our Constitution says, that every Kenyan has got a right to stay in whatever area of this country. And Kenya should really just have one title deed, so that all of us belong to Kenya. And this is the title we should protect. Very well spoken, the Honorable Bunyasi. We shall have contribution from the Honorable Wachira Kabinga, member for Mwea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this particular bill. Mr. Speaker, this amendment simply wants to amend Section 232 of our Constitution by introducing a requirement of an annual reporting on our human resource, especially in the public service, the county assemblies, and the county public service, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is a good requirement. It's good for Kenyans to know who is there, who is out there. But as many speakers have alluded to, it is important that we look at this reporting in a very sober manner, that we should not bring in politics into some of these reportings, Mr. Speaker, because such a report, as alluded to by the Leader of Majority, can be positively used or negatively used, Mr. Speaker. And it is important for us as Kenyans to look behind and know where we are coming from, to understand where we want to go. This is a country, as you yourself have alluded to, where every Kenyan have a right to choose where to stay. And if I choose to stay in Kisumu, and I am profiled by my name, then I'll be discriminated in Kisumu. It is equally important for us to know that even as you look at the statistics in the public service, as you look at those profiled names, you must also, alongside that, equip yourself with the statistics of the population, that there could be some people who are too many, not just in that office, but even out there, including mortuary, including those that have been affected by COVID-19. And therefore, as Kenyans, as we prepare ourselves to make use of this report, we must also avoid the political economy of the bill or politicizing the bill itself. This has been a problem, and it's a high time that Kenyans start looking at each other as walking alongside each other, not to look behind, blame each other, instead of finding ways of building this nation as one nation. There are some people who keep on looking behind, keep on talking about how there has been or there is marginalization without facts of the present day. When you look at counties, Mr. Speaker, there is a requirement that counties must employ some certain percentage from outside their counties. It is now becoming necessary for us to hear from some of the counties that may have been complaining in the past to see how they are performing on that particular requirement. And these statistics, used positively, will start correcting some of those thinkings. And therefore, I am urging our fellow Kenyans, and especially this parliament, whenever a motion comes in, let us look at it in a very sober manner. Let us not use history and the past to judge the future and the present. When we have important bills, and this is why we probably have a small problem in our other house, Mr. Speaker, because people are not looking at issues at the present. They are looking at issues with some history and some baggages that they are carrying from the past. Let us live to the present. When we bring in bills, even in this house, Mr. Speaker, I've always had a feeling that we need to review some of the things that are existing, including our own CDF, where it's talking about equality and not equity. When such a debate comes, let us look at it in a sober manner. Let us not look at it in the eye of some certain tribes. Let us look at it in form of Kenyans. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that in this House we pass a bill of ensuring that in some of these public offices, only one language, Kiswahili, is used and any other becomes a crime in that office. I support Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, allow me to thank the Honorable Madegu, Honorable Mwadime Andrew, for giving us this wonderful bill, which has come very timely. And Honorable Speaker, I'm so grateful to speak on it. Allow me to support it, and especially, Honorable Speaker, it's coming at a time when statistics are telling us that most of our civil service is comprising of 46 years of age to 60 years, most of whom, Honorable Speaker, have gone home, And we are all alive to the fact that there is COVID-19, and most of the civil service or these civil servants have gone home, and they are technologically not very much informed. Honorable Speaker, why am I speaking over that? It's because we see a scenario where the youth or the young are likely to be called upon to at least improve in the civil service or work in the civil service. And these people, as they join the civil service, Honorable Speaker, most of them are working as interns, and moreover, others will be put in. We want to see, Honorable Speaker, that when this young generation is now coming in, let not the letter that begins with your surname determine how you'll get employed. Let not an O mean Odhiambo that cannot employ a K, meaning Kimani. Let us see a scenario where Wafula sits next to Kimani and sits also next to Odhiambo. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I find that it's very much timely, and I'll be urging that let it be assented on immediately after this process, so that we can see and enjoy the fruits of this bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill speaks to independent commissions, it speaks to public service commission, it speaks to county service boards. Honorable Speaker, when you draw down from the national angle, Honorable Speaker, to county service board, you find a county with 12 constituencies like ours. Honorable Speaker, you are likely to find that employment of the staff is maybe and most probably favoring a few sub-counties and leaving others. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, universality of employment is going to be assessed from this House. And once the returns are brought back to this House, Honorable Speaker, at the end of the year, we should be able now, Honorable Speaker, through the Committee on Implementation, to follow up and confirm that now the situation is corrected and the people who deserve to be employed are rationalized. Honorable Speaker, we want to talk as one country, one Kenya, one people. Why is it that sporting, when we go out, we all celebrate when we saw Eliud shining 1 minute, 59 seconds? We all became as one country and one people. We united behind Eliud Kipchoge. We would want also to unite behind all of us in terms of employment, and we wouldn't want to see a scenario where a section of the community is favored against another. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, this bill is very timely. It is really a good bill, and I would want to support it and urge my colleagues also to support it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support.
Very well. Honorable Musimba.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. It is indeed a momentous thing to have a bill such as this discussing values and principles. And I think the overriding responsibility unto every Kenyan, indeed as you're being employed, is about lives and livelihoods of our Kenyan people, as opposed to where you're coming from, or indeed the balances that are there. So it's good that the report calls upon, all the service commissions to give us a listing on a year-to-year basis. But I want to echo one of the things Honorable Munyasi said, that there must be also equally penalties for non-adherence to the law once we pass it. That in event a certain service commission, be it a public service commission, parliamentary service commission, or judicial service commission, doesn't adhere to these principles, then the accounting officers or the HR people are held to account. And it leads us to actually grow to a next level where I think Kenya ought to have one singular hiring body, which is harmonized for all the counties, the service commissions, so that we have a first in, first out basis in terms of applications. So that the line state corporations, the line commissions simply make a request and say, we want an engineer of this caliber. And we go to a unified database and be able to fish out the person. So that persons listed living with disabilities, people who are retiring, that database catches and balances. For every person who's ahead of time to retire, we know we are going to hire for the same organization. We have to respond to emerging opportunities and which are coming through all sectors. that are not competitive or encouraged within our university systems. We had a debate at a point in time saying that particular programs within our universities ought to be scrapped. But these are critical, you know, encouraging people to go for psychology, encouraging people to study things like sociology. They are needed for the cohesion and the better management that such situations that we are having, where we are having an increased rate of people hanging themselves, people frustrated with the diseases which can be cared for, that such attrition within society is heavily limited by having the HR becoming an amalgamated function that serves Kenya, and that now looks at communities and says, in such and such a communities, do they have engineers? Do they have architects? Do they have lawyers? Do they have doctors? Do they have enough carpenters? Do they have plumbers? So that then you're encouraging the institutions around those communities and societies, now that the government has already put up a policy to have a university per county and TVETs spread around the country, then those are exponential to the people who are there in terms of filling that space. So it is indeed timely, and we need to encourage it, but need to move, as we move to the Committee of the Whole House, put in the penalties and mechanisms to ensure that we are working towards one cohesive nation that fosters to grow its national domestic product. Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable members, there's still a lot of interest in this, but you have run actually the time for debate on this. It is now time for the mover to reply, and the mover in replying may choose to contribute part of his time to some of the members who are still interested. He has 5 minutes. The Honorable Mwadime, you have 5 minutes. You may wish to donate a minute or two to some of these members. The Honorable Mwadime.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the onset, before I move, let me give Sankoku 1 minute.
Do I hear the Honorable Nyenze?
1 minute. 1 minute. And I think that's it.
You need to say
and
the
also
names.
My friend there, 1 minute.
I have only heard the Honorable Nyenze, the Honorable
Oundo. I'm under.
The Honorable, we'll start with the Honorable Nyenze.
Sir, Professor Oundo, Dr. Oundo. Yes.
And then the Honorable Undo. The Honorable Sankok, resume your seat, please.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this time, and also thank you for donating 1 minute to me. This amendment has come actually at the right time when Kenyans feel very frustrated about jobs, because they feel that you have to have a tall relative for you to get a job. And because of that, they've kept on applying for jobs, and they don't know who takes these jobs. Because like now, we've been told about 10,000 interns for teachers, 5,000 to be employed also. And then you wonder, from which regions are these people being employed? Because people who left about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, teachers have not been employed. So this amendment has actually come at the right time when Kenyans feel frustrated, especially with the Public Service Commission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Undo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, my friend, Honorable Mwadime. Thanks a lot for donating, and thanks a lot for bringing up this bill, amendment to the bill. Truly, the public service principles and values is an important bill. It's an important legislation. However, we have not lived to the letter of the law. We hope these amendments will entrench that particular requirement. And as my colleagues have said, we need mechanisms to punish those who do not comply. A country like Busia, where we have many people of different ethnic groups, it's so unfair to find that all the plumb jobs are held by one community at the exclusion of others. For those few remarks, I support.
The Chair of the Committee on National Security.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, I want to thank Honorable Mwadime for bringing this amendment. And Honorable Speaker, I have only 3 things I wanted to mention. One, Honorable Speaker, the issue of serving the people of Kenya is very critical even if these amendments are being implemented. And second, Honorable Speaker, it is the issue of training of people who are serving Kenyans. They need to change their mindset so when you're employed and working, you don't go to only serve your own tribe, but you serve the people of Kenya. And finally, Honorable Speaker, I urge all the leaders to make sure that they speak to the other people who are leaders in different parts of the government to be people who care for this country, who care about one people, one nation, and one mind. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Bondime, finally, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the onset, basically, the objectives of this amendment is to amend the Public Services and Principles Act to require all state organs to, in the national and county governments and state corporations, to submit annual reports on details of the human resource in constitutional commissions, independent offices, and county public service
The Honorable
boards.
Mwadime, you must note that you have only 1 minute to reply. If you are going to read all those things, I don't think you will manage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. But actually, it's inclusivity, diversity of the country. I beg to move.
To reply.
To reply, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, having confirmed that we have the requisite numbers to proceed with this step, I now put the question that the Public Service Values and Principles Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 17 of 2019, be now read a second time. Will those of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable members.
A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Public Service Values and Principles Act and to provide for connected purposes.
Very well. Honorable members, the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, the 5th August 2020 at 2:30 p.m.